Goblin Drill wasn't even supposed to exist. It was one of Supercell's most broken releases ever, and it became the single ultimate offensive and defensive strategy. In 2018, Seth talked about scrapped cards that wouldn't make it to the game. One was a prison goblin, and one was a goblin drill, among others. Goblin Cage was actually added the next year, which turned out to be the prison goblin that they talked about a couple years earlier. But Goblin Drill was one of the things that just didn't work out. I don't even think this video was supposed to surface, but here we are talking about scrap cards in a Supercell Elites meeting from 7 years ago. They concluded that these two cards wouldn't work for the game.
So these are the things that didn't work out in 2018.
But a year later, they added the Goblin Cage to the game. But surely, they wouldn't add a Goblin Drill. That sounds stupid, especially since they said they wouldn't add one. 3 years later, a new card was added to the game. The Goblin Drill is an epic building that can be placed anywhere in the arena. It digs like the miner but slower, and upon reaching your target, it does spawn damage and releases goblins in front of it. It does so every few seconds, and when it's destroyed, it spawns a few more goblins. This actually makes it one of the most complicated cards in Clash Royale, and this is important for my point later in the video. The concept, however, was fine, but Supercell screwed up on one aspect: the stats. HP and damage were actually fine this time, but the drill spawned way too many goblins, and when they spawned, they were too close to the tower and too quick. It also dug 25% faster than it does now, which makes it more difficult to react to in time. All of these things made Goblin Drill a pain to go against, which is exactly why Supercell released the Goblin Drill on June 12, 2021 through a draft challenge. Once your opponent placed the drill on the tower, the goblins would spawn almost instantly, and because their hit speed was faster than it is now, it was almost guaranteed damage since it was so difficult to react to. This gave the drill a tiny 59% usage rate, which is completely balanced. But the drill had one primary weakness, and that was splash damage troops. This meant that cards like Dark Prince, Bowler, Valkyrie, and the Bomber were boosted in usage this season because of the huge presence of drill. We even had instances of a Mother Witch causing the buildup of huge counter pushes because of an offensive drill.
No, I'm dead. I think I overcommitted, let's just say, but maybe just a little bit. I didn't expect him to have Mother Witch. Who has Mother Witch?
To be fair, if a card is present in a deck more times than not, you'd want to use a direct counter as many times as possible. The Goblin Drill was also one of the most versatile cards at the time. Like the miner, drill could be placed anywhere in the arena, and it had the same hitbox as a Tesla. It also acted as a building when spawned, so it could be used on defense, and it was even better because it spawned many goblins at your attacker. All of this was for 4 elixir. With how much potential and repetitiveness this card has, this made Goblin Drill the most no-skill win condition in Clash Royale. Some people would still argue this still applies today, even if those people are wrong. Regardless of what people said, they were not happy with the state of the game. Some archetypes struggled hard against this meta, like Hog Rider, because there were often 2 buildings in drill decks. Complaints kept piling up, and that's why Supercell finally made the decision to nerf the Goblin Drill. On June 17th, a 1-second delay was added to the drill's first spawned goblin. It also adjusted the formation at which the goblin spawned. Now they spawned closer to the center of the drill, making it easier to counter. It also reduced the effect a burrowing drill has on the troops on the surface. Before, there were interactions like this. But that wasn't good enough because the card was still busted. Supercell clearly needed to hit their second quarter revenue goals, so they let the drill do a little bit more damage. But this is where we hit our first small issue with the drill. There was an imbalance, and there almost always is, especially back then, but an imbalance nonetheless. Here's what I mean by this. In Clash Royale's old history, they released cards through some type of challenge. Typically, it was a draft challenge, and those who got a certain number of wins could get to that card. The small twist was that one of the drafting players would choose whether or not to take the new card in their draft matches. In this case, 6 wins was all you needed to become the owner of the most powerful card in the game, but you were permitted 3 losses. If you failed to get 6 wins before you lost 3 times, you could not drill anyone. Supercell stopped releasing cards this way a few years ago, but it still gave many players a clear and unavoidable advantage over those who didn't get the card early, or for those who missed the event. The card fully released on July 11th, a full month after it was first released in the draft. It was still busted. I mean, the card was a weird concept to begin with, but even more so because of how many goblins had spawned from it, which they fixed on September 9th. The Quarter 3 update reduced the goblins spawned on death to 2 instead of 3. The primary issue with the card to begin with was the sheer amount of goblins spawned. This took it down a decent amount for them to wait and see the drill's performance for a while. All the attention went from the drill to a huge update in September that added champions and level 14. Level 14 was okay, I guess, nowhere near the pushback on level 15, but that also meant Goblin Drill was the last card added before the champion era, which also meant it was heavily overshadowed. Drill was still a good win condition, and it fit right in with the rest of the cards. Sure, no one likes going against it, and that's probably why I use it, but it was still part of the lineup, but the brokenness still happened, and really, most cards released ended up being busted. This one was remarkable because it was probably the most broken win condition ever released. It created its own decks and its own playstyles. That is what sets it apart from the other releases. We still have more to cover though, and guys, make sure y'all like and subscribe, especially if you're enjoying the video. Thank you. June 7th, Goblin Drill's burrowing speed is down 25%. This, along with the design change the previous year, makes it more distinct from the miner's digging. It also made the drill easier to react to, so it was a nerf, and mostly justified as well. Drill was still a good card, and maybe, just maybe, a little too good at the time. In Grand Challenges in April, the drill had around a 5% usage rate. Next on the chopping block was Goblin Drill again. The Goblin's first attack time interval is up from 0.2 to 0.4 seconds. As a Goblin spawns, before, it would almost instantly attack the tower, but now it's easier to log the drill and get less damage on your tower. It also moved the drill from Rascal's Hideout to Serenity Peak, making it harder to get to. Drill was now cemented as a win condition in Clash Royale. Not too broken, but very annoying to deal with sometimes, like Flying Machine. Despite being the newest win condition in Clash Royale, its similarity to Miner made it easier to get accustomed to. Drill Poison was a very popular deck across the seasons, and people were getting used to it. In 2023, nothing major directly happened to the drill, but something more important was happening to the game. Level 15 and card evolutions were released on June 19th. Any win conditions that got evolutions would be brought up along with all the cards that the decks used. Royal Giant was one of these at the time, and on October 23rd, the Goblin Drill's damage was buffed 1%. Goblin Drill didn't get an evolution, and that's sad because it almost needed help in some way to boost its usage rate. In 2024, Goblin Drill got an evolution. It probably wasn't the most deserving of an Evo, but Supercell decided to launch it anyway. Before that though, on the 5th of March 2024, a rework increased the Goblin Drill's lifespan, extending it to 10 seconds from 9. It also decreased the first spawn time to half a second instead of 1, but it nerfed the drill's HP by 8.9%, making it less effective on defense. For the purposes that most people use the Goblin Drill for, this would be a buff. Clearly, Supercell had the Evolved Drill in mind and buffed the regular version beforehand. In June, the Goblin World update was released. This brought the Evolved Goblin Barrel, Goblin Queen's Journey, and everything else you probably know. And for the next few months, they would launch Goblin-themed updates to the game. One of which was the July update, where they released Evo Goblin Giant and later in the month, Evo Goblin Drill. This evolution kickstarted a new era for the drill, and a new wave of Goblin Drill haters. The Evolved Drill reached the tower like normal, but its health was divided into 3 sections. Once a section's health ran out, the entire drill body would recede back into the ground and pop back up again to another side of the tower. It would do this again after the 3rd section. Each time it receded, it would spawn another goblin. Needless to say, it was a very broken evolution. The problem this season was the sheer presence of Lava Hound, and Hound, with some exceptions, counters Goblin Drill. The Hound was strong this season especially, and the meta wasn't perfect enough for Drill, so only one person finished top 10 with Evo Drill, the GOAT, Remy Eli. Despite the lack of power the drill had, they nerfed it the next season, which was deserved. August 6th, they removed the receding goblin, meaning there were less to deal with. Now, unless your opponent had a very effective splash damage card, the Evo Drill was almost guaranteed damage on the tower. Pair that with poison, and it was guaranteed damage on the tower. But from July to October, the drill ecosystem was mostly balanced. These were the days where you could use almost any drill deck and get away with it. Drill Poison, Drill Wall Breakers, Drill Marcher, Drill EXE, anything really. But the Evo was still a little too good. It retained its 8% usage rate in Grand Challenges. It's not terrible, but it gave just enough cause for Supercell to issue a rework. On the 8th of October, the damage and pushback from the 2nd and 3rd stages were removed. To contrast this, they added a Goblin to the 2nd Submerge. This meant that Evo Drill would no longer counter any extra swarm outside of its normal abilities. This meant yeah, the Evo Drill was crap. Generally speaking, Evo Drill was the worst evolution in the game. Most seasons had Drill at a 1 or 0% usage rate in top ladder, and the regular ranked was no different either. This also meant that all Drill players were refusing to use the Evolved Drill. It was better to utilize that evolution slot for a different card. Up until December, Drill Poison was the top dog, but after December, a new evolution came about that gave Drill another life. Evo Snowball was unique in that it took troops off the arena for a short time whilst also pushing them back and slowing them down. This meant it was great for countering swarms or pushing splash units away from something. Both of these things are what the drill needs. But this combo wouldn't be as popular just yet because of a fat beatdown meta propagated by the Royal Chef. This guy was boosting Evo P.E.K.K.A, Evo Goblin Giant, everything really. January would have allowed this meta to clear up, but something even fatter was ruining the meta this season. Rune Giant was difficult to go against, and this season was also very unkind to drill. Towards the end of the season though, Rune Giant was nerfed and no one finished top 10 with it. This meta actually wasn't that bad, but we'll gloss over it. Finally, we saw more Drill Snowball. People were complaining, but even more so because it's very annoying to go against. You have every defensive move you can make and it gets wiped off the map to deal 600 damage to your tower. It's nuts, but one thing was left out. the Evil Drill. As you're watching this video, it will be a year since the Evil Drill became the worst evolution in the game. No one uses it, and in some cases, it's worse than the normal version. Everyone would rather use Evil Snowball and Evil Cannon. This led many people to complain about the pain and suffering of Evil Snowball, and it made Supercell decide to crack down on the drill meta. The October 2025 balance changes nerfed 40 cards. Of those 40, Berserker, Bomber, Furnace, Guards, Skeletons, Vines, Evil Cannon, Evil Valkyrie, Evil Wallbreakers, and Evil Snowball were nerfed. All of this was on top of nerfing the drill itself. The Goblin Drill's first spawn time was increased to 1 second from 0.8 seconds. All of these cards are commonly used in drill decks. Needless to say, drill was down this season, but it was deserved. Today, we sit with a decent drill that is mildly friendly to people, and maybe one day, the Evil Drill will be relevant again. Until today, November 3rd, after a whole year of being the worst Evo, the Evolution Drill has been buffed. The goblin spawned on first submerge was increased from 1 goblin to 2 goblins. This doesn't do much, but it won't be the worst evolution in the game, I'm betting. Maybe, just maybe, we will see some more usage out of it. The no skill comment does have some ground, however. It has been said in the past that Goblin Drill is the E-Golem of cycle decks, and they're not necessarily wrong. Drill is like Miner in many ways, but Drill is supported constantly by either broken cards or chip damage spells like Poison. In fact, the entire goal of Drill is chip damage, which makes it annoying. This develops the sentiment that, hey, I don't like facing the Goblin Drill, I think it should be deleted. And still, they aren't wrong. Evil Drill in its prime did not help this sentiment either. Does this make the Goblin Drill the most no-skill win condition in Clash Royale? Probably, actually, but that topic is still up for debate. There is something else about the Goblin Drill that you probably didn't notice. Win conditions in Clash Royale are cards designed to deal damage to the tower consistently. Cards like Expo, Miner, or Hog Rider. Released in 2021, the Goblin Drill is the last win condition ever added to Clash Royale. So for 4 years, we have been waiting for a new one from Supercell. The reason why it's taking so long is the topic for another video, but that means Drill is the newest win condition. And yet to this day, it remains the most broken win condition in history that did destroy Clash Royale in its prime. Make sure y'all like and subscribe. It would be much appreciated, especially if you enjoyed this video. And let me know what card I should cover next. Can you tell I'm a Drill player yet?